Intro music fades. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's not just about epic battles and ancient wars, but about the even more brutal battle fought within the human heart. The battle for trust and the crushing weight of betrayal. Grab a snack, settle in, because this one's a whirlwind. Our tale unfolds amidst the accursed mountains, where the very air tasted of smoke and pine, a bitter perfume to a man named Sir Aranit. He was a knight of the house of Krasniki, and he stood on the ancient ramparts of Ruzafa, his armor scarred, his eyes fixed on a sight that would chill any warrior. A vast Ottoman encampment sprawling like a dark, sinister stain across the valley below. For 10 grueling years, this war for liberation had raged, a relentless tide of conflicts, and now the final, desperate act was upon them. Aranit was a legend, Orak in the storm. His name was whispered with reverence among the soldiers. He wasn't fighting for glory, not for fame, but for the very soil beneath his feet, for the sacred memory of his father, who had fallen in the first brutal uprising. This was deeply personal for him. For all those years, by his side had been Sir Felix, a knight from the sun-drenched coastal lands. Felix was, in many ways, Aranit's opposite, charismatic, lightning-fast in battle, and blessed with a cunning mind that could unravel the most complex Ottoman maneuvers. They were the perfect pair. Aranit, the unyielding hammer, and Felix, the swift, precise dagger of the resistance. Against his own guarded nature, Aranit had come to call Felix brother. This wasn't just a comradeship, it was a bond forged in the fires of war. But the betrayal, when it came, wasn't a single earth-shattering blow. Oh no, it was far more insidious. It was a series of small, painful fractures, each one chipping away at the foundation of their trust, leaving tiny, almost imperceptible cracks that would eventually shatter everything. The first fracture appeared at the Battle of the White Dream. The War Council had meticulously planned every detail. Aranite's heavy infantry, known for their unwavering resolve, were to hold the river crossing. It was a brutal, grinding task designed to be the anvil. Their role was to absorb the Ottoman onslaught, to hold the line, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Felix's agile cavalry, swift and deadly, were to be the hammer, sweeping down from the wooded hills to crush the Ottomans against Aranit's unyielding line. It was a classic pincer movement, a brilliant strategy. Aranit and his men stood firm for hours, their shields a wall against the sea of Janissaries. The sun climbed higher, relentless, and the river itself ran red with the blood of heroes. They fought with every fiber of their being, enduring unimaginable pressure, waiting, always waiting for that crucial hammer blow from Felix. But it never came. When the Ottomans finally broke, it was from sheer exhaustion, not from Felix's decisive strike. Later, much later, Felix arrived. His men were fresh. Their banners gleamed in the setting sun, untouched by the day's horrors. He clasped Aranite's bloodied shoulder, his face a mask of profound regret. The terrain was impassable, brother, he'd said, his voice smooth as silk, designed to reassure. Ravines we hadn't scouted. We had to find another way down. Aranit, weary to his bones, had simply nodded. He swallowed the coppery taste of doubt, a bitter pill. He wanted desperately to believe his brother. The second fracture materialized at the siege of Dagna. The rebels had the old fortress surrounded, a strategic prize, but a powerful Ottoman relief force was only days away. Their only chance, their desperate gambit, was a night assault. Aranit was to lead the main force against the heavily fortified gates, a near-suicidal charge meant to draw the defenders' attention. Felix, with a hand-picked team of elite men, was to scale the undefended western wall, a treacherous climb, certainly, but one possible for a skilled climber's hand, opened the postern gate from within. It was a risky plan, demanding perfect coordination and absolute trust. Aranit charged. He lost 100 good men on the spikes and in the hail of arrows before they even reached the massive gate. He fought like a demon possessed, his sword a blur of steel, cutting down foe after foe, waiting, always waiting, for the cry from within, for the groaning sound of the gate opening. It never did. He and his shattered force were forced to retreat under the desperate cover of their own archers. Their mission, a tragic failure. At dawn, they saw Felix's team miraculously unharmed, returning from the opposite direction, as if they'd been on a leisurely patrol. Felix's story this time was one of a sudden, reinforced patrol on the walls, of being moments from discovery. We would have been slaughtered. It would have been a waste. But Aranit noticed something disturbing. Felix's eyes didn't hold regret. Instead, there was a strange, calculating calm, a coldness that sent a shiver down Aranit's spine. The doubt gnawed at him, growing larger, more insistent. The final, soul-shattering break came on the eve of what was to be the final battle, a decisive clash that would determine the fate of their nation. The Pasha himself was leading a massive army to break the siege of Rasafa, a move that could crush their liberation movement for good. The rebel high command decided on a daring, almost suicidal plan. A feigned retreat. The goal was to draw the Ottoman vanguard into a narrow, winding gorge, a natural choke point where they could be utterly destroyed. It was an incredibly risky gambit, demanding absolute, unshakable trust between the commanders. The honor and the mortal danger of being the bait fell once again to Aranit. He was to lead his men, feigning retreat, luring the enraged Ottomans into the trap. Felix was to hold the high ground, hidden from view, and then, at the opportune moment, seal the trap with his forces. The next day, Aranit played his part with grim determination. He taunted the Ottoman advance guard, provoking them, then gave the order to fall back. His heart a frantic drum of dread in his chest, he led the furious Turks into the jaws of the gorge, the towering shadows of the cliffs swallowing the sun. He could almost feel the eyes of Felix's archers on the cliffs above, waiting for their moment, waiting to spring the trap. But then, something was wrong. He heard the Ottoman war horns change their tone. They weren't cries of pursuit, but signals of command, crisp and deliberate. They weren't surging forward blindly. As he expected, they were fanning out, securing the ridges, moving with an eerie precision. Aranit looked up, his blood turning to ice, and he saw him, Felix, atop his magnificent grey charger, not hidden, but silhouetted against the sky on the canyon's rim, perfectly visible. And for a single, horrifying moment, their eyes met across the vast chasm. There was no mistake this time, no impassable terrain, no sudden patrol. There was only Felix, watching, observing the unfolding tragedy. Then Felix turned his horse. He raised his hand, not in a signal to attack, not to spring the trap, but to retreat. And like a ghost, he and his entire division melted away from the high ground, abandoning their post, leaving the gorge's mouth wide open. The trap had been sprung, yes, but it was Aranit and his loyal men who were caught inside, surrounded, betrayed. Somehow, through sheer, desperate fury, through a primal will to survive, Aranit fought his way out. He carved a path of carnage back to Rosafa, his soul as scarred and broken as his armor. He arrived with less than a third of his command, the grim survivors of a betrayal that cut deeper than any blade. He found Felix in the main hall, standing before the gathered warlords. Felix's face was a portrait of grim relief, a carefully constructed facade. Aranit, thank God you live. The Ottomans had a second force circling the ridge. They would have taken us from behind. I had to pull back to save the army. It was a terrible choice. The lords, ever ready to trust Felix's smooth explanations, nodded, murmuring their understanding. Felix's logic was, as always, impeccable, perfectly crafted to deflect blame. But Aranit saw it now. He saw the cold calculus behind every delay, every withdrawal, every calculated move. Felix was not fighting to win the war. He was fighting to manage it, to survive it, to emerge from it in a position of power. He was meticulously preserving his own forces, letting Aranit's bleed dry, ensuring that when the dust finally settled, it would be Felix, the savior, who held the ultimate power, not the battered, honorable lion of Krasniki. Aranit did not shout. He did not accuse. He simply walked up to Felix, the heavy clank of his armor the only sound in the sudden, deafening silence of the hall. He stopped so close he could see his own haggard reflection in Felix's polished breastplate, a stark image of exhaustion and pain. "You speak of choices," Felix Aranit said, his voice low and ragged as gravel, raw with suppressed emotion. "You made yours in the river valley. You made it again at Dagnum, and you sealed it today in the gorge." He leaned closer, his words a whispered venom, meant only for his former brother, for the man who had torn his world apart. "You did not betray the homeland today, Felix. You have been betraying it, piece by piece, for years. You traded the blood of my men for your own future." He straightened up, his eyes burning with a cold, righteous fire, a dangerous light. "The war for liberation will be won. That I promise you. Batsik notice, when the last Ottoman standard is cast down, you and I will have a final accounting. Not as knights of the same army, not as brothers, but as what we are now, a patriot and a viper." He turned and walked away, leaving Felix standing before the lords, his flawless composure finally, for the first time, touched by a crack of genuine fear. The war against the Ottomans was not over, but for Aranit, a new, more personal war had just begun. A war for justice and for the very soul of their nation. What an incredible story of honor, sacrifice, and the ultimate betrayal. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest enemies are those we once called friends. If you found this story as gripping as I did, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more tales from history and beyond. And let me know in the comments below what you thought of Aranit's stand against Felix. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.